If you wake up at the same time every night, your body is trying to tell you something. Same time, every night, your eyes open in the dark, and the clock has barely moved from where it sat yesterday, or the night before that, or the night before that one. You do not remember deciding to wake, you did not hear a noise, nothing in the room has changed, and yet here you are again, staring at the ceiling at the very same minute, as if some quiet appointment had been made without your knowledge. Most people, when this happens, blame their age. They roll over, they sigh, they tell themselves that this is simply what getting older feels like, and they try to force their way back down into sleep. But a wake-up that repeats like clockwork is not random, and it is not just the years piling up. Something is interrupting you at the exact same moment, night after night, and it has been doing it patiently for weeks. Tonight we are not going to talk about what your body happens to be doing at that hour. Tonight we are going to do something different. We are going to find out who keeps waking you, because there is a suspect in that repeating minute, and it almost always has a name. Before we go one step further, let me give you one honest and important word. Everything you are about to hear is for information and for curiosity, and for nothing more than that. It is not medical advice, and it can never take the place of your own doctor who knows you and can actually examine you. If you wake often in the night, if you have been told that you snore loudly, or if you feel worn out in the morning no matter how many hours you were in bed, please treat that as a real reason to be checked. Those three things together can point towards something called sleep apnea, and only a proper evaluation can say for sure. Keep that quietly in the back of your mind as we walk through this, because by the end you will understand exactly why it matters. Now, here's the first rule that every good investigator learns, and it is the rule that changes the way you will think about your own nights from this moment forward. A repeated event always has a repeated cause. If a light in your house flickered at the same second every evening, you would not shrug and call it a mystery of the universe. You would look for the loose wire. You would follow the pattern back to its source. Your sleep is no different. The fact that you wake at nearly the same time is not the strange part. The strange part would be if a random disturbance happened to strike at the same minute night after night by pure chance. It does not. The clock is not the problem you need to solve. The clock is the fingerprint. It is the clue that something specific and repeating is reaching into your sleep and pulling you up out of it, and our whole job tonight is to give that something a face. There is one more thing worth understanding about why the time stays so fixed, because it is the quiet engine behind everything we are about to investigate. Your sleep is not one long, flat, unbroken thing, the way it feels from the inside. It moves in cycles, rising and falling through lighter and deeper stages over and over all night long, and those cycles are surprisingly regular. You pass through the deeper, heavier stretches earlier in the night, and the lighter, more dreaming stretches later on, and the whole pattern repeats on a schedule your body keeps faithfully without any effort or attention from you. Now here is why that matters so much for our investigation. If some trigger tends to strike during one particular kind of sleep, a lighter stage let us say, or the delicate moment when your body shifts from one stage into the next, then because those stages arrive at roughly the same clock time each night, the trigger will keep finding you in the very same window. That is the hidden reason a disturbance can be so precise, so eerily punctual. It is not that something in you checks the clock and decides to wake you at 3:15 on the dot. It is that whatever is bothering you is tuned to a certain phase of sleep, and your sleep brings that phase around like clockwork. Night after night, delivering you to the same vulnerable moment at the same time. Understand that one idea, and the mystery of the fixed hour begins to dissolve. It was never magic, and it was never a message from beyond. It was rhythm, and rhythm is something we can trace. So let me hand you your first tool, the simplest and the most powerful one you own, and it costs you nothing. It is a notebook and a pen kept on the nightstand. For the next several nights, the moment you wake, do 3 small things before you do anything else. First, look at the clock and write down the exact time. Not roughly, the exact time. Second, before your mind starts spinning, notice your body and write down what you feel. Is your heart pounding? Are you damp with sweat? Is your mouth dry as paper? Is your bladder full and insistent? Is your chest tight? Or is your mind simply racing while your body feels calm? Third, in the morning, add 1 line about the evening before. What you ate, what you drank, how late, and how you felt when your head hit the pillow. That is the entire method. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but I promise you 3 or 4 nights of these small notes will tell you more about your sleep than a year of lying there wondering. Because each suspect we are about to meet leaves a different mark, a different signature on your body and on the clock, and the notebook is how you catch it in the act. Let us begin with the first suspect, and I am putting this one first for a reason, because in the audience listening to my voice right now, this is the most common culprit, and at the same time, the one almost nobody suspects. This is the one that hides in plain sight for years. The suspect is sleep apnea, and the reason it deserves the top top of our list is that so many people who have it have no idea, and the ones around them often notice the signs long before they do. Here is what is happening, described gently. As you drift into deeper sleep, the muscles all through your body relax, and that includes the soft tissues at the back of your throat. In some people, especially as we get older, that relaxed tissue narrows the airway. Air has to squeeze through a smaller and smaller space, and that squeezing is what creates the sound of snoring. But in some people, the airway does more than narrow. For a few seconds, it collapses, and the flow of air stops. Your breathing pauses. Your body, which is far wiser and more watchful than you give it credit for, notices immediately that the oxygen is dropping, and it does the only sensible thing. It sounds an alarm. It jolts you up toward the surface of sleep just enough to tighten those throat muscles and open the airway again, often with a gasp or a snort. And then, because the whole thing lasted only seconds, you sink back down and you do not remember a single moment of it. Think about what that means. This can happen many times in a single hour, and you may never once wake up enough to know it. But if it happens to strike hardest during a particular stage of your sleep, a stage your body reaches at roughly the same time each night, then you get exactly what brought you here. A wake up at the same hour, feeling as though something startled you, sometimes with your heart going fast and no idea why. Now, how would you know if this is your suspect? Listen for its signature. Have you been told that you snore and not gentle snoring, but loud snoring with sudden silences in it? Silences that make the person beside you nudge you or hold their breath waiting for you to breathe again. Do you wake with a mouth as dry as sand because you have been breathing hard through an open mouth? Do you have a fuller neck, more pressure there than you used to? And here's the biggest tell of all, the one that separates this from almost everything else. Do you feel tired in the morning even when you were in bed for 8 or 9 full hours? That last one is the heart of it. Apnea steals the quality of your sleep while leaving the quantity untouched, so you do everything right, you go to bed early, you stay in bed long, and you still wake up feeling as though you fought a battle all night, because in a quiet way, you did. And there is one more witness in this case that you should never overlook. Perhaps the most valuable witness of them all, and that is the person who sleeps beside you. This is the strange thing about apnea. You cannot hear your own snoring, you cannot feel yourself stop breathing, and you certainly cannot watch it happen. But someone lying next to you can, and very often has simply learned over the years to live with it, or has stopped mentioning it altogether so as not to worry you. So ask them, plainly and without any embarrassment, because this is your health and not a matter for pride. Ask whether you snore, and then ask the more important question. Ask whether the snoring ever stops in a way that frightens them, a sudden and total silence that stretches on a beat too long before it breaks with a gasp or a snort. That silence is the thing to listen for, and their answer can be worth more than any guess you could make on your own, because they have been sitting in the front row of this crime every single night while you slept right through it. And if you sleep alone, do not think this witness is beyond your reach. There are simple recordings you can make through the night that will play those sounds back to you in the morning, and what people hear in those quiet recordings, the snoring, the pauses, the sudden startled breaths, often shocks them at last into making the appointment they had been putting off for years. I want to be very careful and very clear here, because this matters. I am not telling you that you have sleep apnea. I cannot, and no honest voice could tell you that from a distance. What I am telling you is that this is the single most common hidden interruption in people over 60, that it is very often missed for years, and that it is exactly the kind of thing worth bringing to your doctor, especially if that combination of loud snoring, a dry mouth, and daytime tiredness sounds like your life. There is a simple study that can look for it, and it is one of the most rewarding conversations you can have with the doctor, because unlike so many things at our age, this one very often has a real and effective answer, so do not fear it. If anything, be glad, because a suspect with a name is a suspect that can be caught. Write it in your notebook if the signature fits, and carry that note into the office. Now let us move to the second suspect, and this one wears a very different mask. This is your blood sugar, the level of glucose quietly rising and falling in your body all through the day and all through the night. For most people, this happens smoothly and they never feel a thing, but in some people, especially those whose bodies handle sugar differently than they used to, or those taking certain medications, the level of glucose can dip too low in the small hours of the morning, long after dinner has been digested and the body has burned through its easy fuel, and your body, once again the faithful watchman, does not let that dip go unnoticed. When blood sugar falls too far, the body reaches for its emergency levers. It releases adrenaline and other stress signals to push that sugar back up and protect you, because your brain runs on glucose and it will not sit quietly while the tank runs low. The problem is that adrenaline is the same chemical that floods you when you are startled or frightened, so it does its job, it corrects the sugar, but the price of that correction is that it wakes you, and it wakes you with its signature all over you. That signature is the reason this suspect is often easy to spot in the notebook once you know what to look for. When blood sugar is the culprit, you tend not to wake up calm. You wake up with your heart pounding, sometimes racing, for no reason you can name. You may be sweating even if the room is cool. You may feel a strange, sharp hunger in the middle of the night, a hunger that does not make sense hours after a full meal, and sometimes a shakiness or a slight trembling that eases if you eat something small. If you open your notebook after a few nights and you see the same words appearing, pounding heart, sweating, hungry, then this suspect deserves a very serious look. And here I must repeat with even more care than before, the most important sentence of this whole section. If you take any medication, and especially if you take medication that lowers blood sugar, you must not, under any circumstances, change how much you take or when you take it based on anything I say here. This is not a matter for guessing, and it is not a matter for the internet. This is precisely the kind of pattern that you write down. Exactly, and you carry to the doctor who prescribed those medications, because they can look at your notes and your timing and adjust things safely in a way that no video and no stranger ever could. The notebook is your voice in that room. Let it speak for you. The third suspect is one that a great many of us invite into the house ourselves without ever suspecting it, and it comes disguised as a friend. It is the evening drink, and it walks in beside a heavy late dinner. Here is the trick this suspect plays, and it is a clever one. That glass of wine or that nightcap genuinely does help you fall asleep. It relaxes you. It slows your thoughts. It lowers the wall between you and sleep, and you drift off faster than you would have without it. So it feels helpful, and that is exactly why it escaped suspicion for so long. But alcohol does not stay in your body being helpful all night. Your body sets to work breaking it down, and this takes hours. And when the alcohol is finally processed and cleared, usually in the second half of the night, its effect does not simply fade to nothing. It rebounds. The very system it had quieted swings back the other way, and your sleep, which was heavy and deep in the first half of the night, becomes light and broken and restless in the second half. That rebound tends to happen at a fairly fixed number of hours after the drink, which is why it can plan to wake up at almost the same time night after night, especially if your evening routine and your drink are roughly the same each day, and traveling right alongside the drink is the heavy late meal. When you eat a large dinner close to bedtime, your body is still hard at work digesting when it should be resting, and lying flat makes it easy for stomach acid to travel upward, creating that burning discomfort in the chest or throat that can pull you awake, sometimes with a sour taste or a cough. Rich foods, spicy foods, and large portions eaten too late all feed this suspect. So how do you catch it? This is where the morning line in your notebook earns its place. For a few days, write down honestly what you drank and what you ate in the evening, and how late. Then look for the connection. Do the nights you wake at that stubborn hour follow the nights with a drink or a big late meal? Do the calmer nights follow lighter evenings? You do not need me to run the experiment for you. Your own notes will do it, and unlike some of our suspects, this one hands you an easy test. On a few evenings, gently shift your last meal earlier and set the drink aside and watch what the clock does. If the wake-up loosens its grip, you have found your answer, and you have found it with your own eyes. Our fourth suspect is the most familiar of them all. So familiar that people often assume they already understand it and then get it completely wrong. It is the bladder and the visit to the bathroom that drags you out of bed. Now, most people believe this is simple. They think, I woke because I needed to go, and the reason I needed to go is that I drank too much before bed, so I will just drink less. And then they drink less, and to their frustration, the wake-up does not go away. And they cannot understand why. Here is what they are missing. Waking to use the bathroom in the night, especially in older adults, is very often not about the water you drank at all. There are several quiet causes stacked on top of one another. In men, the prostate can enlarge with age and press on the flow, making the bladder feel full and urgent even when there is not much there. In women, changes in the pelvic floor over the years can do something similar, and in everyone there is a hidden mechanism that surprises people when they first hear it. Through the day, when you are upright and on your feet, fluid can gather in your lower legs and ankles. Then, when you finally lie down flat at night, all of that gathered fluid slowly returns into your circulation, travels to your kidneys, and becomes urine in the small hours. So you are producing more water to pass in the middle of the night, not because of the glass you drank at 9, but because of the fluid your own body had been storing in your legs all day long. This is exactly why cutting back on evening water so often disappoints people. They attack the wrong cause, and it is also why this suspect can hold a fixed time, because the process of that fluid returning and filling the bladder follows its own steady schedule once you lie down. What is worth understanding is that a bladder that wakes you can sometimes be a messenger for other things as well, quietly connected to how the heart is managing fluid, or to blood sugar, or to those age-related changes we mentioned, which is the reason that persistent nighttime waking to pass water, especially if it is new or getting worse, is genuinely worth a calm conversation with your doctor rather than a private war fought with your water glass. Note it down. How many times, at what hour, and whether your ankles look swollen by evening. That That last detail, the swollen ankles, is a clue most people never think to mention, and it can be the thread that unravels the whole thing. Now we come to the fifth and final suspect, and this one does not live in the body so much as in the mind, though it works through the body all the same. This suspect is stress, and its faithful servant, the hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is not your enemy. In fact, you need it, and there's a beautiful design to how it normally works. In a healthy rhythm, cortisol is low in the deep middle of your night, and then it begins to rise in the hours before dawn, climbing gently to help lift you toward waking, giving you the energy to open your eyes and meet the day. It is meant to be your body's own quiet sunrise, an internal alarm that eases you up rather than shocking you. But when a person is carrying chronic stress, when the mind is turning over worries by day and refusing to fully set them down by night, that careful timing gets pushed forward. The cortisol rise arrives too early. Instead of gently lifting you near dawn, it arrives in the small hours and yanks you awake, and it wakes you in a very particular way, with a signature you will recognize the moment you hear it described. When stress and cortisol are the culprit, your body is often calm, but your mind is instantly fully awake. There is no pounding heart from low sugar, no gasping from apnea, no urgent bladder. Instead, your eyes open and your thoughts are already running at full speed, as if they had never stopped, circling the same worries: the money, the family, the thing you said, the thing you have to do. And no matter how tired your body is, your mind will not release you back into sleep. You lie there thinking, and the more you think, the more awake you become. That racing, thinking wakefulness at a fixed hour, with a calm body and a spinning head, is the fingerprint of this suspect, and there is a cruel loop hidden inside it, because lying awake and frustrated about being awake generates more stress, which feeds more cortisol, which makes the waking worse, night after night, until the hour itself becomes something you dread as bedtime approaches. Breaking that loop usually has more to do with what happens in your mind during the day and in the hour before bed than with anything in the bedroom itself, and it is a suspect worth taking seriously rather than dismissing, because the mind's grip on sleep is very real. So now you have met all five: the breath that catches in the throat, the sugar that falls in the dark, the drink that rebounds, and the meal that lingers, the bladder filled by fluid your legs stored all day, and the mind that will not quiet, lifted too early by its own hormone. Five suspects, each with a different face, each leaving a different mark on your body and a different note in your book. And this is where all of it comes together, because now you understand why that simple notebook is the most valuable thing on your nightstand. It is how you close the case. Let me give you the method plainly, the way a good detective would lay out the evidence. For the next several nights, when you wake, you answer 3 questions, and only 3. First, what time is it exactly? Second, what does my body feel like right now, in this moment, before my mind takes over? Is my heart pounding? Am I sweating? Is my mouth dry? Is my bladder full? Or is my body calm while my thoughts race? Third, in the morning, what did I eat and drink last night, and how late? That is all. 3 questions, a few nights, and something remarkable happens. The vague, frustrating mystery of, why do I keep waking up, turns into a page of real evidence. And when you read that page across several nights, the pattern almost always steps forward on its own. Pounding heart and sweating and hunger point one way, loud snoring and a dry mouth and morning exhaustion point another. A wake-up that follows the evenings with wine points a third. A racing mind and a calm body points a fourth. You will begin to see it. You will begin to recognize the face of your particular suspect in your own handwriting. One gentle warning about this method so that you do not give up on it too soon and throw away the very evidence that would have solved your case. Do not judge anything on a single night. One night proves nothing at all, because any of us can wake once for 100 small and forgettable reasons: a noise outside, a dream, a cool draft, a shift in the blanket. The entire power of the notebook lives in the pattern in what returns again and again across several nights, and a pattern needs a few nights to gather itself and step into the light, so give it at least 3 or 4 nights before you draw any conclusion. And do not be discouraged if the first page looks like meaningless scribble. The signal is not in any single line. The signal is in the repetition. The same time appearing a second time and then a third. The same feeling in the body showing up again. The same kind of evening sitting there in the notes before each bad night. When you have watched the same thing happen 3 separate times, you are no longer guessing and you are no longer worrying. You are reading evidence, and evidence, unlike worry, is something you can actually carry somewhere and do something about. And then comes the most important step of all, the one that turns this from a curiosity into something that can actually change your nights. You take that notebook, that page of quiet evidence, and you bring it to your doctor. I cannot say this strongly enough, and it is the reason I have been so careful all through this. Nothing here is a diagnosis, and nothing here is a reason to change a single medication on your own. What this is the best possible way to walk into that office prepared. Most people go to the doctor and when asked about their sleep say only, I do not sleep well and I wake up a lot, and there's very little a doctor can do with that, but imagine walking in and saying, "Instead, for the past week I have woken at 3:15 almost every night, my heart is pounding and I am sweating, and it happens worse on the nights I have a drink, and by the way, my ankles are swollen most evenings." That is not a complaint, that is evidence. You have just handed your doctor a map, and you have turned a 10-minute shrug into a real investigation. If your notes point anywhere near that first suspect, the snoring and the dry mouth and the daytime tiredness, then ask directly and without fear whether you should be evaluated for sleep apnea, because that is a conversation that has given countless people their rest and their days back. So let me leave you with this, and then send you on your way with something to do tonight. The clock was never the mystery. The clock is the clue. Somewhere inside that stubborn, repeating minute, there is a suspect with a name, and unlike so many things at our stage of life, this one almost always has a fix once you find it. Your body is not betraying you, and it is not simply breaking down with age. It is doing the opposite. It is signaling you faithfully at the same time in the same way, night after night, leaving the same fingerprint at the same hour for weeks on end, waiting with more patience than you deserve for you to finally stop rolling over and start following it. So follow it. Put the notebook on the nightstand before you go to bed tonight. Write down the time and the feeling the next time your eyes open in the dark. Give this thing a face, because you have been sleeping beside a clue for months, and it has been trying to tell you something all along. And here's the thing to carry into the next part of this story. Finding the culprit of the night is only half of the work, and honestly it may be the easier half. The other half is decided in the light, in the very first hour after you put your feet on the floor, because the same body that wakes you at that stubborn hour is quietly shaped by what you do in those first 60 minutes of the morning, and most people, without ever realizing it, spend that hour making 7 simple mistakes that undo the rest they did manage to get. In the next video, we are going to walk through those 7 mistakes of the first hour, one by one, so keep your notebook handy, keep watching, and let us find out together whether your mornings have been quietly working against your nights.